In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this pulley wheel with a laser cutter, and this wheel goes onto a servo motor like so. So we're going to attach our laser cut pieces out of wood onto a servo horn, and in a previous video I showed you how to tap these holes so that we can bite into them with some screws, in this case a 440 screw. And then I have a string wrapped around the inner core of my pulley, and it's probably too long, but I wanted to see how much string it would hold, and this is just, typical project string. Okay, and this was about maybe 2 meters or so long, so this little guy here can hold plenty of string. And I just want to show you what the pieces are. If we take our little Allen wrench and unwind it, pull out our 440 screw, and do it one more time. Okay, I've got 3 pieces. 2 outer holes are identical, and the inner, 2 outer wheels are identical, and the inner wheel here serves as the hub. And so they just sandwich together like so to hold the string. I have a hole here in the center, which is necessary so that a long screw can go through the hub, through the center of the horn, and be attached to the servo motor. And then I have a tiny hole here so that it can hold the string. We put a little knot in the other side of the string so it holds it in place, and when it winds up, it then just grabs the string for you. So I'm going to show you how to make really these pieces here, and it's fairly simple to do, but you'll see there's some kind of advanced pieces into this, and so I think this is a video for just about everybody. Join us and let's see how to make these using the OnShape CAD software.
So this is what we'll make on our OnShape today. Part of this is 2 pieces of the pulley. We're going to have 1 piece that's the center hub, and then 2 outer hubs like this, and we're going to put it together in an assembly like so, attach it to the horn, and then attach that to the servo. All right, and just for giggles here, we can animate this so you can see how all the pieces will spin and make sure that there's plenty of clearance for the screws and everything like that. All right, so let's get busy and let's create it. Before we get started with our own build, download 2 of mine that I've created for you, namely the Spring RC and then the servo horns. And here's how to do that. If you come over here to OnShape, this is the main page, you click on the public link. These are all of the latest OnShape designs made by people all over the world. And for example, I think this looks kind of cool, so let's see what we can do with these glasses. But I can make a copy to edit this. Okay, so make a copy. That's perfectly fine. Create that copy there. And so now this is going to download into my own space, and now I can show that to you here. Back to owned by me. And this is the eyeglasses frames, and now I can edit this and change things that I want. Okay, so I want you to do the same thing to Spring RC CDO. These are my initials. So do a search, a public search. Go to public, and then up here in the search bar, type exactly this, Spring RC CDO, and download that. Make a copy of that rather, and then do the same thing here with Servo Horns CDO. Download that. Make a copy of that to your own space, and then later on we're going to use those in our assemblies. Okay, so create a new document like this. I'm just going to go to the one that I've already created here. Create a new document. You're going to be asked to name it, and I name mine Servo Pulley Wheel. You can name yours whatever you want. My students should put their name or their initials somewhere in there because you're going to be sharing that with me. This is what it's eventually going to look like. Yours will look something like this. I'm going to create a new part studio. Move it to here. I'm going to rename it, and you can rename yours as well. I named my original one Spring RC Pulley, but I'm just going to call it Pulley for Video. Okay. Before we get going any further, I would recommend that most of the time I work with millimeters. You can always change that on the fly, but because I work usually in millimeters with 3D printing and laser design, I'm going to click on my name up here, go to my account, click on preferences, and then choose my default length unit as millimeters, like that. Okay, maybe you have to press the Save Changes button there. I'm going to go back to my OnShape, back to my servo pulley wheel. And then you can, if you want to make changes on the fly, you can click on the hamburger here, workspace units, and just make sure you're in millimeters. Before we build on our build planes here, we need to know what measurements we're going to use. So I'm going to click on the assembly. Yours is going to be called Assembly 1. And I'm just going to click on mine, Assembly for Video. And I'm going to go to Insert. And I'm going to look up other documents here. And I can choose Recently Opened, for example. And you'll see right here the servo horn and the spring RC that you just downloaded. Let's go ahead and put both of those in here. So let's click on the servo horn. I'm going to click on the small RC circle horn and click this little guy here. And that's going to show up there. I'm just going to click on that to place it. I'm going to go back to Recently Opened. I'm going to click on the Spring RC CDO. This is what you just imported. And I'm going to click on the Spring RC Servo. And with my mouse wheel, I'm going to zoom out so I don't put it on top of each other, move it around wherever I want it, and then click to drop it in place. I'm done now, and I'm going to click the green checkbox. Okay. And what we really need is we need these holes here. We need the dimensions of these holes. Now, the holes that I want to use are these kind of central holes here. So this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one. So I need to know how far apart these two holes are, okay? And that's easily done if we already have the part like we do here. So I'm going to click on that top hole. Right, I'm going to be really careful to click on the top one and not the whole hole, but just that top edge. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom down into here and click on the bottom hole. This is directly opposite. And then if we look over here, that tells us that the center distance is 15 millimeters apart. And if I click on the tape measure, it gives me all these other distances as well, the max distance, the min distance. But what we really want is the center distance, 15 millimeters. And so I'm gonna just jot that down on a sheet of paper so I can take notes as I go. I'll have something that I can reference, and that's not something I have to memorize. Okay. And so that's kind of the main measurement there that we need. We also need perhaps the outside diameter of this thing, because we want our inner wheel to be at least as big as this, and you can see here the diameter there is 20.98, and that's another number I'm going to write down, 20.98 millimeters. Okay, and so when we go to make our own piece, we'll have those data points for us. So I'm going to click back on my Part Studio. I should have mentioned that it's really helpful to have a mouse whenever you do this with you. If you right click, you can zoom around, rotate around. If you click and hold the mouse wheel, you can pan back and forth. With the mouse wheel, you can scroll in to zoom, and you can scroll to a certain point wherever your mouse pointer is. But I know that the younger generation is not so fond of mice, but they're really, really helpful when you work with CAD. That said, I want to hide the front and hide the right planes. I'm going to work on the top plane. And then to get a better view, I'm going to click over here on the dice and click on top view, so that now I have like a top-down view of my top plane I'm going to work on. I'm going to click on the top plane and then choose Sketch. Conversely, I could have chosen Sketch and then selected the plane I want to click on, play with, and that's the top plane. So now this is my sketch, and you can see it over here on the browser. You can see that I've got the sketch, and we're going to build, there can be several things over here that we build on, but we're going to do most of our work on this sketch number 1. We need a circle, because that's going to be the center part of our pulley. This is what we're going to do. We're going to build the center pulley here, and then we're going to build one of the outer rims here as well. So we need a circle, and I'm going to click on the circle here and just click and drag some arbitrary amount. Now, the horn, we measured diameter to be 20.98 millimeters, and I think for simplicity, let's just make this be 22. So I click and drag, and then all you have to do now is just type. It goes right into that box, hit enter, and now that is 22 millimeters. Okay. And we're going to need another size circle, and let's make that size be, let's make it be somewhat bigger, wide enough or big enough around that it holds our string. So let's just guess that it's going to be, I'm going to make it over here. Oops, sorry. Make it over here, and let's make it 38 millimeters. And as you'll see, we'll be able to change these dimensions if we need to. Because I still have the circle highlighted, if I click, you might get an errant circle. So make sure you uncheck the circle there. And now if I want to, I can grab these dimensions. I can actually pull them over here, get them out of my way if I want, move it around, just make the workspace work for you. All right, next we're going to put some holes here. All right, we need the holes to be able to go into these little horn holes here. Okay, and remember those are 15 millimeters apart. And we also need a central hole here as well. So all of the holes in our wooden pieces, which we're making today, are going to be through holes for a 440 screw. And I know through trial and error, those holes, those through hole diameters need to be 3 millimeters. Okay, so I'm going to grab another circle, and I'm going to zoom into here, and I'm just going to make click and drag, and then type 3, hit enter. And so that center hole, notice I clicked on the center of my circle because I need it to be well centered. I need that guy to be right in the center, a 3 millimeter diameter hole. And I need 4 3 millimeter holes to go around the edge. We're only going to make one though. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I really want this to be directly above my center. So notice if I hover over the center point of my circle, and if I move out this way, it's a little dotted yellow line. If I move up, it's a dotted yellow line. So I've given the center focus. I move up to here. I'm going to click and drag another circle, okay, just some arbitrary size and some arbitrary distance. And I'm going to change that to 3 as well, okay? So I've constrained those two circles to be 3 millimeters. I'm going to then click the dimension tool, and that's going to allow me to constrain how far apart they are. So I click on the center of the first circle, I click on the center of the second circle, and that tells me that that's 8.1 something millimeters. Now, if we want the circle up top and the circle down below to be 15 millimeters apart, then we want this middle distance, the radius distance, to be 7.5, which is half of 15. So I just type 7.5 in my dimension, hit enter, and boom, now it moves it down, and that top circle is now 7.5 from the center. Okay, so now I'd like to make the other 3 circles. And, when I was new at this, I would have just manually made 3 more circles, just like I made this one, one to the left, one to the right, one below. But I've gotten a little bit better over the last couple of years, and this is the way I would do it now. I know I want this to be repeated 3 more times for a total of 4, and I want it to be in a circular pattern about the center point. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on this little down arrow. You may have linear pattern shown, or you may have transform shown, but what we want to choose is the circular pattern. And if you hover over it, it tells you that this is going to make multiple instances about some axis. Now the default axis is this axis over here, the central axis of our sketch. But we can move that anywhere you want, as you can see. So I'm going to click on circular pattern, and I'm going to choose the circle that I want to repeat. And notice that it thinks that I want it to be repeated about this central part, and it assumes I want 3 of them. So there's one there, and there's one there, and there's one there. But I don't want that to be the center. I want this to be the center. So I'm going to grab this little central box. I'm going to move it over here until it snaps to the center of my circle, and now I have 3 identical circles mapped out like this. I can move this in here, and of course, I don't want 3, I want 4. So I'm going to double click there, type 4, hit enter, and now I have 4 circles equally spaced around the 360 degrees, which is, of course, 90 degrees at a time. All right, I'm happy with that. So the icon tells me I need to left click my mouse button, so that's what I'm going to do. And there are our 4 circles. All right. So I'm going to click OK. I'm kind of done with this part for right now. Let's just see what we can do next. I click OK. Now what I want to do is I want to extrude this. I want to make this be not just a flat disc, but rather a disc that has some weight. So I'm going to click on the extrude button. I'm going to choose the face I want to extrude. Okay. And it extruded at 25 millimeters. That's way too big. If I measured the wood that we're going to be using in our laser cutter, it's about 4.4 millimeters thick. So I click 4.4, hit enter, and now I can check the box, and there's my piece. And so that's what the center piece is going to look like. Notice my other circle disappeared. That's because whenever you make an extrusion, the sketch hides itself. So we can unhide that by clicking on the eyeball, and there's the big circle. But it has not been extruded yet, so we're not ready for that. So let's double click the sketch again, and let's go back to a top view. Let's take a look. So I could repeat all of this with the big circle, but because I want these holes to be exactly the same in the big circle, I'm just going to copy the 4 holes. Now, if you highlight all of this, it's going to highlight that outer circle as well. To undo that, you can see the 5+. That means it's highlighted 5 or more little entities. So I'm going to just, if you happen to do this, I'm going to click on that outer one to get rid of that one. So it tells me I have exactly 5. So I'm going to press Command C or Control C, and then do Command V or Control V to paste it. Now I'm just going to simply move this over here to the center. There are lots of ways to move. I can move it up and down with the arrow. I can move it to the right with the arrow. If I grab the box, I can move it anywhere I want. But notice that it's always moving relative to that bottom point there. So I'm just going to click my mouse button to drop it in place. And let me do that again. Okay, so this time I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to choose the transform tool to get those little move arrows on there. I don't want to move about this point because I know I want that center circle to be docked on the center of this big circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that little tiny circle there. I'm going to drag that circle and park it where I want it. That's going to be the center. And then I can grab the little box and I can drag it and I can put it anywhere I want. So I'm going to let it go right there. Click on the left mouse button, and now it moves it over to that point there. So that looks pretty good. We're going to click OK. Now I have a 3D part over here, and I have a 2D part here. I want to extrude this as well. I could go and grab another extrusion, but because I want this inner circle and this outer circle to be the same thickness, it's cut from the same piece of wood, So I'm just going to open up the extrude once again. And there is my 4.4. I'm just going to add another face. So here is face of sketch 1, which is this guy here. And then I can just click over here to add another face to it. There's 2 faces. And now I click the checkbox. And now I have my 2 faces there. I don't really like the little sketch in the back, so I'm going to hide that so you can kind of see it a little bit more cleanly. And let's come over here and look at the 2 parts. I have 2 separate parts. They are made separate from each other, so I have 2 parts. I'm going to right-click on this guy. So this is our first part. I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to call it Inner. Okay, because that's our little inner wheel. Hit Enter. And so if I export it, it's going to be exported as, it's going to be exported as Pulley for video, and then Inner. That's going to be the name of the exported part. I'll do the same to this one. Right-click, rename, and call this one Outer. Hit Enter. We could leave them with this color. We can recolor it any color we want. I'm going to take my Inner edit the appearance, right click on my enter, edit the appearance, and then change it to some kind of wooden color, something like that maybe. Click the green, and that gives a little appearance that it's wood. I can do the outer as well. Edit the appearance. I may want to make this one be a different color. I can choose the same color. It's up to you. Click OK. Now it looks kind of like wood, if you will. Now let's put them together in the assembly. So you're going to click on Assembly 1, and I'm going to click on Assembly for Video. So here you should already have the tiny horn, and you should have the spring RC servo already in the assembly. So now let's add the pieces we just created. So we go back to Insert. Okay. Notice that you have to choose Current Document, and you're only going to have one of these. For me, I need to click on Pulley for Video. So I'm going to click on the little arrow here. I'm going to choose one inner. I just need one of the inner pieces. And I'm going to choose the outer once to put it there, and choose it again if you want, put it there. So we need two outer pieces and one inner piece. It's really important now that you click the check box here, the green check box. If you don't, you won't be able to do anything that I show you next. All right, so there are all the pieces. And now let's reorient the plastic pieces here, the black pieces, so that they snap together a little bit more easily. All right, so I'm going to click on the horn. I'm going to rotate this thing 180 degrees, and if it's hard to find exactly, I could just type in 180, hit enter, and now I've rotated that upside down. Okay, let's do the same here for the servo as well. I'm going to rotate it upwards 90 degrees. Come on, a little laggy there. And then I might reorient here, so I want to reorient this guy here 90 degrees as well. Again, it's a little laggy. Sorry about that. I'm just going to type in 90, and now that's 90 degrees. So these are going to snap together pretty nicely. Because I don't want the servo to move around, I'm going to fix that by right-clicking on the servo and clicking Fix. Let's build the pulley first, and then we'll attach that to the horn, and then we'll attach the horn to the servo. And we snap these together using what's called mates, and all of these things up here are mates. We're going to use primarily the fasten mate, and we're also going to use the Revolut Mate. But the fasten mate is the easiest one to learn. And if you hover over it, it removes all degrees of freedom between two entities, which is a fancy way of saying that you glue the pieces together. They cannot rotate once they're fastened with the fasten mate. So I'm going to click on the fasten mate, and we're going to do several mates here. I want this piece here to snap to this piece here. Okay, and so you really need to rotate around and zoom in and out to make sure you got exactly what you're looking for. But let's snap to this top hole here. Okay, so notice I am there are lots of things you could snap to, and all of the every time I move my mouse around, it's giving me a new little red, green, and blue axis. So I want to make sure I'm clicking on the right thing. I'm going to click on this outside edge circle. Click there, and I'm going to snap that axis. I'm going to rotate around to the back here and click on this axis. Again, make sure that you click on the outer edge of that top circle. Click like that, and now notice then that these two pieces mate like so, and all you need to do is glue it one time. So you click the checkbox, and now those pieces are now snapped together. Okay, and you can see that our holes line up, and we're good to go. Let's do the same thing to make the back piece. See if you can beat me. I'm going to click a new fasten mate. Okay, I'm going to choose this top hole right there, the edge. Again, make sure you grab just the edge. I'm going to rotate around this way, zoom in like so, and click that. Click OK. Notice that only one of these pieces moved. The center piece moved, and both will not move until you click the green check. Okay, so now I have my little sandwich pulley, and if I move one around, they all will move around. For those without a mouse, what my students end up doing is they grab this corner here, right click on the corner, and they drag around, or they click on click on the little arrows to move around. I just think that's super cumbersome. Go grab a mouse. Just grab a mouse and I think you'll be happier. Okay, next we need to then fasten our wheel to one of these four inner circles here. So we're going to click the edge of that horn hole and then rotate around and make sure that I get the right one. Let me show you what happens if I get the wrong one. Let's say if I want to click this guy instead. Boom. Okay. Obviously that's not what we want. Nothing lines up there. So what I can do is I can undo, Command Z, Control Z. I can open up the Fasten Mate here, and I can delete both of these if you want to, or I can just right-click on the Fasten 3 that I just did and choose Delete, or I can just click on it and press Delete on the keyboard, and then that's no longer fastened, and I can move it around and try again. So that's what I'm going to do now. It's really important you have your orientation. It's easy to get lost in 3D world when you're on a 2D plane with your mouse. So I'm going to choose that guy there. Slowly rotate so I can tell my orientation. And I'm going to choose that. Click the green, OK. And now it's all snapped together. That is all one piece, one assembly piece. All right, so before we snap this onto our servo, let's examine the pulley here. So the string that we're going to use in the lab is kind of thick, and so I'm a little worried that these two outer wheels here may not be deep enough or wide enough to hold all the string we might need. Also, notice how are we going to attach the string to the pulley? So I made these two mistakes on purpose just to show you how easy it is to go back into OnShape and make corrections, make changes. So what we should do, of course, this is going to be an easy fix to make the outer wheel bigger. It's just going to be to make the outer wheel bigger. But how are we going to get the string to attach to the pulley? We could try to tie a knot around that center piece, but it's never going to be tight enough to actually grip. And then you could think, well, we could glue it into place. But I think a better solution is to just put another hole here on the outside. We can thread the string through that hole, tie a knot in it, and then it can be used as the fix point as the pulley rotates. Now, where should we put the hole? I think we should put the hole right on the outside of that inner rim. So it's kind of hard to kind of see this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this outer wheel. And the easiest way to do that is to click on the outer wheel. Notice that this one here is the one that I've selected. And I'm just going to choose the little hide outer icon. I'm going to hide the eye. And so now that wheel is still there. I've just hidden it. So what I think we should do is put a circle right here next to the inner circle on our outer wheel there. And so if you recall, or maybe you don't recall, what you can do is you can click on that outer wheel and you can see that has a diameter of 22. So if we put another hole here for the string, the edge of it, the inner edge needs to be 11 centimeters, at least 11 centimeters from the center point to the edge here. So the inner edge needs to be 11 centimeters at least. Okay, so let's go fix those things right now. So all we have to do is go back to our pulley, go back to our sketch. Okay, I'm going to choose top down again. And now over here, we're going to put another hole that is for the string, for the knot in the string. So I'm going to choose a circle. And you always want to build, you don't want to just put things willy-nilly. You want to use the axes as much as possible. So I'm going to hover over my center point, and now you can see the dotted yellow line as I drag across. And you can also see the little icon, which tells me it's horizontal. I'm going to click over here, drag a circle, and I know from trial and error before the video was made that a circle with a diameter of 2.4 millimeters is just perfect for our string, which is kind of nice. It's smaller than the through holes for the screws, but it kind of offsets that. I'm going to use the dimension tool to click on, now this is kind of tricky here. I'm going to click on the outer edge closest to the center. So I'm going to click on the edge and then click on the center of my circle. All right. And we said that that needs to be at least 11 centimeters. So I'm going to type in 11, hit enter. Oh man, it moved this. I can't tell you why that happens that way. So I'm going to undo that. I just do not understand this enough to know why that moved. I guess the cheapest and easiest way to fix that is to dimension that piece. So if I click here and click here and make that be 7.5 and then hit enter, now that is fixed. Let's see if that fixes it. Okay, so now if I'm still in the dimension tool, even if I'm not, I can just double click on this, change this to 11. Okay, so that kept everything the same. I did this 3 times last night. Twice it moved this circle or multiple circles whenever I redimension this. I just do not understand why it did that. One of the times I built it, it worked perfectly fine. I don't understand the software enough, and I apologize for that. But there you go. There's a fix for it. So I dimension that circle to be 7.5 so it doesn't move, and then I dimensioned the edge to the center to be 11. The other thing we want to dimension or redimension rather is this outer edge of our big circle, right? The big circle we said was 38. I think 50 is perhaps a little bit better. Okay, so now I hit enter, and now that circle is now redone. So if we click OK, the holes are automatically done. If we click on the assembly, that's automatically done. Okay, and you know, this may be exactly, oops, I'm just going to click on the top just to kind of reorient. This may be exactly what we want, but to me that looks a little close, right? It's a little, the tolerance there may be problematic. Okay, so easy enough. I'm going to go back to my Part Studio, double click on the sketch, and just change this to 11.5. Okay, that's going to give me a little bit better tolerance. One thing I want to do as well is I don't like how these are all lined up like that. I think from an engineering standpoint, this kind of weakens the material. So what I want to do is I want to rotate this hole for the string and put it, somewhere up in here, maybe at a 45-degree angle. Let me show you how that's done. I'm going to click on the transform tool. I'm going to click on the circle. Remember, this little tiny circle is the point about which the thing moves. So I'm going to grab that little tiny circle and I'm going to move it to the center here. And now I'm going to grab this handle and I'm going to drag it up 45 degrees. Again, if you don't want to drag, you can always type. There's my 45 degree. I click OK and boom, done. Press the checkbox here, go back to my assembly, and now I've got a little bit more space and it's kind of off-centered, which makes it kind of nice. All right, we are moving. And if you recall, we hid this outer one, so let's unhide it. We are really looking pretty good. Before I snap this onto the servo, let's do one more thing. Let's put some screws in here. So we're going to use 440 screws, and we have holes for 4 of them, but really, we only need 2. It's not going to be a very high load on this pulley, so we'll just use 2 for simplicity. And then we need a center screw to screw into our servo motor. All right, so let's figure out that first one, that center one there. So we're going to go to Insert. I'm going to go to Standard Content now. Look at that. We've used every single one. Current documents, other documents, and standard. I'm going to choose ANSI inch, bolts and screws, socket head screws. Okay, there are lots to choose from. Socket head screws. And I'm going to choose a 440, number 4 with 40 threads per inch. Hex type is his hex. And then let's choose a length that's kind of crazy long, just to show you what crazy long looks like. So I chose a 2-inch length, and I'm going to insert that. It takes a second to generate. Okay, there we go. So that screw now gets gets put in, I click to put it in. I can click here to accept it. Okay, so that's much longer than we need, but I just wanted to show you to demonstrate how easy it is to change. This little red, green, and blue axis, we can turn that off by pressing the K key on the keyboard, K as in kappa key, and then let's also mate this guy to our center circle here. Okay, so I choose that center. I'm going to rotate down, zoom way in, and choose one of these inner circles here to mate to. I'm going to choose this one. Boom. Click the checkbox. And now we can see that obviously that 2-inch long screw is way, way, way too big. So instead of deleting this screw and picking a new one, what we can do is we can click on the screw, right click on the screw rather, choose Edit Standard Content Instance, come over here, and I can tell you that we're going to want a 0.88 for my lab. So 0.88 is actually close to 7/8 of a screw, and we have those in the lab. So 7/8 is 0.875, and I think they've just rounded that up. So we just change that. We press Update, and there it goes. It makes it smaller. We click OK, and that's going to be perfect. That's going to screw into the inner shaft of the servo just perfectly. Okay, so 0.88 for that screw. Let's add a couple of more. And for this one, let's try a 5/8 perhaps. So 5/8 is 0.625. And let's insert a couple of these screws, to go around the edge. Boom. And insert it again. Boom. Press the green checkbox. Again, K. The K key gets rid of those axes. And now let's mate this as well. Click on the outer edge. Rotate. Okay. Click OK. And now if we zoom in, that looks just perfect, right? And we may be really satisfied with that, and probably this would be okay. But we typically like to have at least 2 threads showing on the other side of our piece. So I think what we need to do is we need to, again, right-click, edit the instance, and instead of 625, we need to go to 3/4 of an inch. Update that. And now we can see that several threads will be poking out the bottom. This is not going to be in our way. We need to do the same to this guy here. Right-click, edit the standard, change this to 3/4, update it, okay, and then we're going to mate that as well. Again, zoom in to make sure you're mating to the right thing. There we go. Okay, so now we are ready to now do our final mate, which is an exciting one. We're going to use the Revolut Mate. And so if we hover over the Revolut Mate, give it a couple of seconds there, it will tell us that this is going to rotate about the Z-axis, which for us, as you can see over here, is the vertical top axis, the top pointing axis. It's going to rotate about that axis. And we need to choose 2 pieces. One is the rotational piece, which of course is our pulley, our wooden pulley, and the second is the stationary point. So the first selection point is the rotational and the second is the stationary. I always forget that, so I always have to hover. So I click on that. The first one is rotational, so I want to zoom down here very carefully. I want to choose the inner circle of our horn, so I choose that. There it pops up there. The second is going to be the stationary piece, which is maybe this circle here. Okay, we choose OK. And now it's all there. If I zoom in, I can see I barely have enough clearance there, and perhaps that's too close. So what I can do is I can double-click the Revolut Mate, choose an offset, lift it up, which is going to be negative 0.5 millimeters, let's say. So that kind of lifted it up a little bit. We like that. We say, okay. And now everything lifts up, and that's a bit more realistic. So that is what it's going to look like. It looks like we have plenty of clearance. And then the last thing we can do is we can kind of show off our work by animating this. By right-clicking on the Revolut, go to Animate, and then press play. So this is spinning, right? We can see what it's going to look like. We can speed it up by taking fewer steps per 360 degrees. Reciprocate means when it reaches 360, it then bounces back. I can make it go even faster. Okay, there you go. So what we have to do now is we need to export this so that we can laser cut it. And that's the last step. So go back to our part studio, and we are going to export this face, and we're going to export this face. And so the way you do it is you click once on the face, right click once on the face, and then export as DXF DWG. That opens a window, and it's going to be the name of whatever your part studio is, plus the name of the part. So that's perfect for us. Make sure it's DXF and not a DWG, and you want to download that. That's what you can throw into your Adobe Illustrator or whatever your laser cut software is to do the cutting. So DXF is that file format that we want for laser cutting. So you would just press export. It's going to go to your downloads folder. And you can see that, it's going to be right here. You can open that folder, drag it into your software or whatever. And then, of course, we want to do the same for the outer. Pulley for video, outer, and then export that. And then when you cut it, don't forget you need 2 of these bigger ones, the outer wheels. You need 2 of the bigger outer wheels and only 1 of the inner wheels. And that's it. In the next video, I'll show you how to use a tap to cut holes into the little plastic horn here, and tap those holes so that the screw that you screw in, the 440 screw, will actually bite into the plastic, and the plastic will serve as a nut to hold everything together. After that, you can just assemble your parts, and you're on to the challenge of making it lift objects. All right, I hope this was informative, and I appreciate you watching.